the daily time frame. So if we did want to see a big candle moving up, then you can see why this mentality with this trade setup works, where we want to see something happening which does look like previous days movements, to give us that idea about trying to continue the momentum from before, to continue the momentum from before. On that note, as you can see, when we look at things like the RSI, there's plenty of room for this to move higher, and it's broken past the 50% mark, the mid zone. And as we can see, though, if we compare that to stochastics, the last day or so of a lack of continued movement whilst it's in this overall overbought territory means that, of course, what we're looking to see happen is for us to get an opportunity to enter into a trade here where we can see that it's moving in our direction, but also we have the opportunity to wait and see how prices are moving over the next day or two. Because if they drop down below 140, then we've already decided that we don't want to be in a trade where the volatility is resumed and we have to retest off of these lows again. It'd move as we were suggesting there. Well, if we got a candle that looks something like this as of using as a drawing to demonstrate, then we find that on the daily time frame that takes the prices up towards the 50 simple period moving average. So that would be another really ideal area for somebody who's just thinking in a daily time frame basis where they could take profit at. And then you might think, well, there might be increased risk there. So what you might then do if you got into a trade at this area is start to think instead about how your risk, as you're in profit and you don't take that off the table, your trade starts to look and feel and act more like that. So what instead you'd be thinking perhaps is that you might move your stop loss up some if you are trading this off of the momentum idea to see candles which look like this. Now if the large candles, now if you're happy to sit and trade for a period of a week, for example, and see prices retrace slightly back against you but then continue to push down, then you can absolutely trade it in that way, as we saw at this point here, or the arrows pointing to. But you can also then be a breakout type trader and trade it if it does indeed break past the lows, because there was a wick here, a wick here, and then this broke down below it. So if you were then to go with the momentum that way, then that's how you would feel about breaking down past this low at that point there, right? So we can use the same mentality towards the top side. I was looking at Oracle chart, by the way, if you're just joining us. Looking at Oracle, thinking, is it turning around here in this period? In this recent time. There's reasons why you could have closed your trade, as I already expressed, moving up towards the weekly time frame, 200 simple period moving average, and also in the daily time frame you can see, because this is an area where in the past there had been some order flow, buying and selling, which has created a degree of liquidity where some people were right, some people were wrong. So people are taking profit in here perhaps because they thought to themselves, like Michael Burry, for instance, maybe, if it takes out the past area like this, then some buyers that were wrong became correct, and some sellers that were right are now wrong. So he would then close his trade because he didn't want to be wrong any longer than he needed to be. But he's not necessarily broken past that. But if we use these lows, we can think about the highs here on this latest phase. So if we see prices breaking past these areas, then we can start to think about taking a long, and that means that we're looking at prices breaking up towards 150 or so, which makes it nice and clean and easy. Of course, then if prices retrace back down into 148, 145 after that, then you would know that your thesis, which is that you could see another day like before happen again to move towards the 50 simple, was wrong. And that's why you would manage your risk like that. So that's a whole trading breakdown for people. Hopefully you find that helpful. This is as Oracle has actually managed to do some good things lately. If we look at the headlines about the news, we can see that, well, there's the Michael Burry news popping its head up there. But, you know, Oracle stock is rebounding despite the soaring CDS spread. Is it a buy? Oracle stock tumbles. Weekly recap, 52-week lows, BBB cut record. You know, all the news seems to be bad here, but what we actually know is that Oracle had got told that they'd have to spend 7 billion to secure electricity for one of their data centers. Just have to give them 7 billion kind of in a way. They use a derivative to do it, and it actually costs them $100 million a year in terms of how to fund that. But that was kind of bad news for Oracle. So then what happened? And let's bear in mind that Oracle is run by the guy who's the very first person, very first person to visit Donald Trump in the Oval Office in his latest round of presidencies. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure that the leader of Oracle was the very first person that visited him in the Oval Office. So this bill comes up, $7 billion. You're going to have to figure out a way to make that secure for this electricity company. The next thing you know is the Pentagon signs a $7 billion contract with Oracle. That's pretty neat. And then, as Paulo Coelho said in his book, The Alchemist, when you're moving towards your destiny, the whole world conspires to help you. Well, what is the story with OpenAI right now? And it is that OpenAI might not have enough money to be able to pay for the data centers and the chips that it needs. Oh no, the story is all so sad. Well then, what happened though? What happened? Enter Nvidia. They says to OpenAI, you're going to need to spend like a couple $100 billion on buying chips and building these data centers through Oracle, obviously, and all that. So how about we fund you, I don't know, about 250 billion or so. And this is Nvidia, which is massive company. You know, they completely dominate the top of all the biggest companies in the world. And it's why the NASDAQ is so great, is these magnificent 7 companies and all the money that they have. Well, Nvidia was able to turn around and say, OpenAI, you can have this money that you need. So now, of course, when you look to the Oracle chart and think, could it have momentum? It has an upswell of positive stuff after a period of where the headlines are still looking pretty bad. And then we've got this one kind of like nice bit at the top here, you know, about how Michael Burry's closed his puts. January 2027. You know, I mean, we're looking at how the next then few months could play out. We're in August as I record this. So if the next few months lead to this type of movement, then what we would see is a retracement back up, maybe towards the golden pocket, 187, maybe towards $200, nice round number. That would make a lot of sense, $200, nice round number. Maybe it doesn't quite achieve it the way that it didn't achieve the $100 on the way down, so let's not be too over the top. Let's say that it pushes up towards 190, 185, 198. So we come into the golden pocket. Yeah, that sort of thing. That's what we do. How about that? That'd be neat, wouldn't it?